Welcome to r/surviving infidelity. Here's today's story. 38-year-old nephew confronted his 36-year-old wife who's been cheating on him with his father. As per my previous posts, my 60-year-old twin sister discovered, in late May, that her husband of 40 years has not only been cheating on her, but it's with none other than their eldest son's wife. There are no words in the English language that could possibly come close to describing the anguish of this situation. My nephew had been stationed in Germany since January, and initially wasn't due home until the end of the year. That was until his younger brother and sister had literally flown to Europe to break the devastating news to him in person. He soon filed a request for emergency leave, and it was granted last week. Upon arriving on Thursday midday, after an 11-hour flight and little to no sleep for quite a few days, since having learned about the depravity of his father's actions, he insisted on going to the hospital to confront the man he has idolized all his life, and reassured his sister, who'd picked him up from the base, that he would show restraint. That soon turned out to be anything but, and who could blame him? My niece had accompanied him inside, and after coming to the realization that their father was busy in the OR and wouldn't be done until a few hours later, my nephew went ballistic and had a hard time taking no for an answer. When the receptionist asked if she could take a message in an attempt to calm him down, he retorted with more expletives aimed at his father and said, "Ask him who he's banging. You all love him, but I'm here to tell you he's a sick son of a bleep, and tell him I said to go blank himself." My niece was beside herself and began crying because all eyes were on them, and many people know who they are. As he got louder, security was called and they were asked to leave immediately. My niece later recounted the story to me and regretted giving in to her brother's demands because it was a terrible idea that should have never happened. Suffice to say, just about everyone who was at the hospital that day knows that the good doctor is having an affair. It's only a matter of time before the gossip circles inside and outside its walls finally figure out who the other woman is. My nephew then went home to his mom, and my sister was inconsolable from the moment her son stepped into her house. She initially didn't want to show him all the texts between his father and wife, but he demanded to read them, leaving her no choice. My brother-in-law soon learned about all the commotion that happened earlier that day at the hospital and took the extraordinary step of calling, but no one answered. In fact, none of his children are actually speaking to him since they found out. It's a given that his mistress soon found out too. My nephew wanted to see his kids, so he got his mother to drive him to the house that he shares with his wife and kids. It turns out that my nephew has been having doubts about whether or not his daughter, the younger of the two children, is actually his. That evening, the argument with his wife devolved into a screaming match that later resulted in a neighbor calling the cops. We have since learned that my nephew asked his wife over and over who is the biological father of their daughter, and she finally admitted that she doesn't know. His wife admitted to being in love and sleeping with his father since late 2016, a few months after giving birth to their son. The daughter was born in December 2017. My nephew hasn't confronted his father face to face as yet, but received a letter over the weekend addressed to all three children, which they refused to read. My sister did open it, and her husband wrote, among other things, that he's deeply sorry for the insurmountable pain and misery. He's far from perfect, understands if his children don't ever want to speak to or see him ever again, and realizes that nothing he says or does will ever change the situation he has caused, but they should never forget that he'll never stop loving them until the day he dies. The sheer audacity of a man who has hidden behind his looks, money, and success for decades, only to be reduced to a pitiful excuse for a human being. My nephew is going to be home for 3 weeks before he goes back, and has since retained the services of a lawyer in order to obtain a court order to establish paternity. It's devastating to watch the people I love so much be consumed by sadness and heartbreak of unprecedented proportions. If it wasn't bad enough already, my nephew has been hitting the bottle every day since his return last week. Here's the first comment. Expose everything. Affairs thrive in darkness, and being unwilling to expose everything is like amputating oneself. Keeping things hidden gives the perpetrators power over their victims, be it infidelity, rape, domestic abuse, etc., etc., etc. Here's the next comment. How can you do that to your own son? This is one of the most disgusting things that a father can do to his son, and for someone who you look up to. Your nephew needs to start the divorce process now. He can't be with someone that cheats on them with their own father-in-law. You need to check your nephew into rehab because he could become an alcoholic and potentially lose his job. He can't do that for the sake of his kids. He has to be strong for his kids. I know that it is hard right now, but the nephew has to be strong if he is going to get custody of his children. For the brother-in-law, you have a wife and someone that loves you. You have been married to her for over 40 years. Why would you do that? You idiot. You need to break up with your family and leave them, all of them. You deserve to rot in double hockey sticks for what you did. You know what you did, and for you to say that you are far from perfect. Get that BS out of here. There are people in worse situations that get better by their own sheer will, not by submitting to their urges. You are a disgusting father, and why would you do that to your own son? He loves you, you dumb A. He looked up to you, and now he is an alcoholic, and he could potentially lose his job, marriage, and potentially his kids. Do you realize what kind of crap he must be going through right now? Get out, and don't look back, because you don't deserve a family that loved you, and cared and respected you. Here's the next comment. Hey OP, I would really be worried about the mental health state of your nephew right now. Watch out for signs of being suicidal in him. Probably keep him company till he goes back to work. Prayers for your family. Here's the next comment. I hope your nephew is able to absolutely destroy his father's life completely through and through, and make him die alone in a nursing home. Make sure to get those two exposed everywhere. There is no recovering from this, and the only future now for everyone involved is legal matters only. The father did something no amount of counseling or healing can do. Holy crap, even I'm mad reading this. I'm not a man to advocate for revenge, because moving on is usually the key to getting past infidelity, but in this case, it's so messed up. Here's the next comment. Unfortunately, I relate to this far too much for my own liking. I spent my childhood watching this near exact same scenario and lived through it. It is unbelievably devastating to watch and go through a family full to its knees because of the pure selfishness of two people. My stepdad was in the army, and as most know, spent a lot of his time away from the family home. My mother and stepdad's father had an affair from me being 3 years old till I was 10. She also had my youngest brother during that time period, and without a doubt he is the son of her father-in-law. I'm 38 now, and I still cannot put into words the impact this has had throughout our lives. Please be there to support each other and take one day at a time to process this devastation that you are all going through. My deepest thoughts are with you all. Here's the next comment. All I have to say is wow. This is a doozy, and one of the most messed up situations I have ever read. This father is nothing but a narcissist and will step all over his own children to get what he wants. I hope karma hits hard. Here's the next comment. Holy blank, if the second baby is indeed the father's, then first kid and second kid will grow up in a messed up environment. Here's the next comment. I have no words to comfort you and your family in this abhorrent situation. Your sister and nephew need professional help, surely. I hope, when they file for divorce, they sue those two animals penniless and get a bountiful sum in monetary compensation. No amount of money will ever patch these wounds, but those two beasts deserve to be left with as little as possible. Sadly, the children should definitely undergo paternity testing, and I have serious doubts of that disgusting woman's capacity to even properly take care of her children, given how monstrous and beastly she has proven herself to be. How can someone without any morals raise functional human beings? Is she planning on raising her kids with their grandfather/father? Those poor innocent souls deserve better. And the rest of the family need to cut both adulterers off and pretend they are dead. Here's the next comment. This is so sad. Nothing good comes of this sort of sordid affair. I feel most sorry for the child whose paternity is in question. She did nothing wrong, but will most likely be ostracized for it. This breaks my heart. Sadness everywhere you look in this situation. Here's the next comment. Monsters. Blanking monsters, the both of them. I'm so sorry for your sister and your nephew, but also the kids who are going to have to live through this. I can't even imagine the horror your nephew's daughter must be going through. Thanks for watching.